So it's the Dark Phoenix
Yes.
storyline, right? The most beloved X-Men story ever.
Yes.
But you do have a bit of history with the storyline
Yes.
as well. But I think that's fascinating, though, because it kind of gives you an interesting perspective on it. So what was it like kind of having, in some ways, a do-over, a chance to do it right, to do it like the comic books always kind of teed it up as?
Thanks. Look, you know, I worked on, as you know, I was one of the writers, co-writer of X-Men: The Last Stand.
Sure.
And I would say part of that story was the Dark Phoenix story.
Sure.
And my big regret from that film was that the Dark Phoenix story, which is the greatest storyline in the history of the X-Men comics, it's the most beloved storyline, as you know. It was my favorite storyline as a kid growing up of any comic. And I read Batman, I read Spider-Man, I read every comic. But the X-Men Dark Phoenix saga was my favorite. My big regret from X-Men: The Last Stand was that it was the B plot of that movie. It was the background plot of that movie. You know, Famke, I think, has like 2 lines in the second half of the film.
Yeah.
And so I always wanted, though never knew if I'd have a chance, to get a do-over. And then when I was writing Days of Future Past, and I realized at the end of the movie that I could actually change the timeline so that as if X-Men: The Last Stand had not happened, giving us ultimately the opportunity to tell the Dark Phoenix story again, I was very intrigued and excited, and that's what I wrote. And so getting to do it now, getting to do the Dark Phoenix story and getting to direct it, so really like getting to be the vision behind the movie, not just, you know, informing and influencing it, but literally authoring it. You know, I took very seriously because the source material for me is, you know, gospel. And for me, really what I wanted to do, and I talked to Chris Claremont about this, you know, what I said was I want to be true as possible to the essence of the Dark Phoenix story. And for me, what that meant was tell Jean's story.
Sure.
Get inside what it is to you know, get infused with a cosmic force from space. Obviously, we didn't do any of the space and the cosmic and any of that in The Last Stand, but really tell the story of what it is to struggle with this power that is greater, larger than you. And that's what, for me, I always loved about the Dark Phoenix saga in the comics was her struggle, how emotional that was, how relatable that was, and this idea that as she starts to crack up and be destructive and sort of hero turned to villain, which is part of what's so shocking about the story, right? It's somebody that you love starts to go dark. How it affects the family around her and how it starts to fissure and tear apart that family. That's the story I wanted to tell. And that's just, I mean, wildly different from X-Men: The Last Stand, which is a story about the cure and all the stuff that goes with that.
But you've been part of the X-Men series since then, though. And do you feel a certain ownership over these characters, especially the way that they've been depicted on the big screen?
I think the ownership of these characters belongs to Stan Lee.
Sure.
I have felt a custodianship of these characters on the big screen for the last 15 or so years since I got involved. I felt like maybe I'm sort of the architect of this cycle of the X-Men's lives on film, and that obviously includes Deadpool and Logan as well that I produced. So yeah, you know, I feel this kinship to them. I feel this responsibility to them. I love the comics so much. I feel a responsibility to the comics and to the fans, and they've become my family. I mean, I've spent as much time on the set of X-Men and X-Men related movies as I have at home. In the last 10, 15 years, truly. I mean, quite literally. So these actors have become my family. These characters have kind of become my family. And I always wanted to direct, and so it felt fitting to direct not only an X-Men movie, but my favorite X-Men story of all time. And to do it in a way where, you know, going into this movie, it felt like there was a sort of a culmination of this cycle of storytelling for the X-Men. And so I felt like, having lived with it for so long, I wanted to be the person that would author and sort of control the fate of this culminatory story.
Did you hear what the kids are calling you? Phoenix.
Hello, Jean.
Who are you?
The better question is, who are you?
The girl dies.